You're an angel witch. You are an angel witch. You're an angel witch. No. No, you're an angel witch. You are an angel witch. That's what I thought. How you doing, guys? You clicked on the wrong video today. Because it's a Brainsmasher from the vaults. We're gonna finish out the letter G today. How exciting. Yeah. In the background, man, you won't believe how good this record is. If you're not already a fan of Beyond Dawn, it's Beyond Dawn! Norway's answer to Swans, kind of in a way. They're like a doomy post-metal before it was cool to be post-metal. This record came out in... Oh, for fuck's sake. I've got my archives right here. I'm gonna do you a solid and just make sure I'm doing this right. I want to say 95, but it's 95. Woohoo! Woo! All right, it's 95. This was reissued by Candlelight in 2001. Originally, I believe it came out on Peaceville. It's one of those kind of old Peaceville bands that kind of fell through the cracks, and then they found themselves on Misanthropy, killer label, excellent lineup, and then they kind of didn't really get notoriety there, and they really never chose to fit any mold, and I love that about them so much. All their albums are fantastic. This is maybe their most accessible one, and that's why I chose this one, so that maybe I can convince you to listen to it. They've got acoustic albums that are fantastic. Some of them are like versions of their metal songs, but either way, just super emotive. Just a brilliant use of trombone in slower metal. And their singer, Espen Ingjerd. Amazing stuff. Also, if you're a fan, I'm also a fan of the side band, like post Beyond Dawn, called Two Trains. They have 2 releases out. Fucking great stuff. Less metal, more just like indie rock, but killer stuff. So, a lot of this stuff is going to be deathly because we're in the word grave. So, we're going to start off with grave. None other than Sweden's barbaric psychonauts, whatever word is in my head. So they start off with Into the Grave. No, I don't have their demos, Ken. I'm sorry. Man, talk about a debut. What a debut. So this is just fucking pummeling, thundering, nightmarish, brutal death metal. This is like, when you talk about the year 1991, raining down death metal classics, this is always spoken of, bar fucking none. You cannot talk about 1991 or Swedish death metal whatsoever without talking about Into the Grave whatsoever. It's maybe a perfect record. I don't listen to it too often because it wasn't necessarily like a formative album for me. And it is so fucking heavy that honestly it's sometimes kind of hard to swallow. I'm just gonna put that out there. I can listen to some death metal kind of casually, kind of just like in the background, but this thing rages so relentlessly that I respect the fuck out of it, but it's not like, ooh, I'm gonna listen to that. Same way with kind of like with Deicide, like that shit's intense. You gotta really strap in. So I picked this up in a shop several years ago, sealed. Found a ton of classics upon that very day. And Here I Die Satisfied. This is one of those slimline EPs. So if I don't listen to Into the Grave very often, I obviously don't listen to this one, and Here I Die Satisfied, all too often. So I'd be lying if I could tell you anything that differs from this versus Into the Grave. There's 6 tracks on this thing. I would guess. Looks like there's a couple of. Yeah, we got a guest appearance from the Cats. you know, I'm just making shit up at this point. Probably demo tracks or stuff like that. I should definitely pop that in. Now, You'll Never See is the next record chronologically. Drink that album cover in for a moment, if you will. That's just one of the most fucking amazing album covers there ever fucking was. I dig into this one a little more often than Into the Grave. Oh, maybe a lot more often. I got a shirt of this in the mail a couple months ago from AliExpress. I fully endorse buying bootleg death metal t-shirts from China on AliExpress. This is a little bit more songy. They're really exploring more melodicism and harmonies going on. Maybe, like, you know, taking the brutality down from like 11 to 9.5 or so, which is fine. You know, it gives you a little more breathing room. It gives these songs a little bit more repetitive choruses and the like. It kind of gives these a little bit more of a familiar structure and not such just like a brazen barrage of just brutality, if we're going for alliteration here. You'll Never See is good, but again, it's not as formative as these next two albums. Then we have Soulless, and for a lot of people this is their I'm Giving Up on Grave album, but I think you're fucking wrong. This album is like way more rock and roll, death and roll. It's weird how like fucking Entombed and Grave kind of did that both around the same period. I think Soulless is a successful take on that. Some people would say like Wolverine Blues, not so much. By the way, if you're interested, I'm gonna show you something. I have a fairly valuable collectible, and if you want to buy this from me, hit me up. This poster is 6 fucking feet wide. And this was a promotional poster put out for Wolverine Blues. There you go. Throw me an offer, but like, don't fuck around. This thing's pretty valuable. I just don't have the room for it, and it hung in one of my houses for 5 or 6 years, so I'm done with it. It's not in the best of condition, but hit me up, we'll talk. Reserve $100. I'm gonna say that. Anyway, back to Soulless. Thank you. Back to Soulless. This album rocks. It's not as cringy as I think a lot of people who want to be a little more stoic about their brutality. I think it's good. And then we've got like yet another giving up point, hating fucking life. Man, this was, I should have probably talked about this in my like formative albums kind of thing, but I didn't want to get down too many like tangential paths, if you will, but I like this album, and it's because it was one of my first metal albums. It is stupid, no doubt. I will not argue you on that. But we all love stupid shit. Don't try to act like we all have exceptional taste in metal. Come on. This is fun. I obviously don't listen to it very often, but it's maybe like the Sepultura roots of like the big 4 Swedish death metal bands, if you will. Yeah, it's that bad. It's maybe not as bad as Roots. I will say that, but it's kind of that. But man, the tone, it still was recorded by Skogsberg, so it's fucking brutal. I love so many albums. I would think I'm safe to say like I love every album recorded in Skogsberg's studio. And then we have maybe my least familiar Grave album, Fiendish Regression. My buddy Marty sent me a copy of this a couple of years ago. Don't know why, but I was actually pretty impressed. These guys must have had a turnaround. Now, like on Hating Life, I was like, all right, I'm good. I probably shouldn't go any further down the grave path than that. And having everything prior to that, all the grave I need. Now, I'm sure they've done what a lot of 90s bands did and gone back and kind of played their old school style and put out decent albums just like they used to. And like a lot of times I don't usually care. I've got other good stuff to be listening to. But this was pretty killer, so I did appreciate Marty sending me that. Next we've got Grave Desecrator from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Now, this is of an ilk that I ordinarily think is pretty run-of-the-mill, you know, that kind of Hell's Headbangers, South American, thrash, death, black, bestial kind of stuff. But this is really good. This actually came out on Ketzer Records in 2008. Yeah, 2008. Thanks, Notes. Pretty good. I don't know if I could, like, I don't have it on the tip of the tongue to tell you like why I think this is better than a lot of that kind of stuff. It's just kind of rules. I play it maybe once every 2 years or so. It's called Sign of Doom. Now I bet a lot of this band's other material is fucking awesome based on the strength of this debut, but I've never gone in and checked anything else out that they did. Next we've got Graven. They were a German band. This is Perished and Forgotten. This thing fucking rules. If you're looking for something kind of like a Dark Throne clone, something really run-of-the-mill, but kind of new, but good, and not forgettable, Graven were kind of like never really got their due. One of these guys went on, so they only did this album, as far as I know. They may have reformed and done something else, or done like a reissue with a demo or something like that. But one of the guys went on to do Varg Sang as a solo project, which totally carried on with the Graven spirit, and did some really, really fantastic work under that name. But this is really where it all started for him. It's like a German version of Transylvanian Hunger. It also kind of reminds me of The Nor, because they're from Germany as well. Really, really good stuff. It's just kind of, it's super run-of-the-mill. There's a ton of bands out there that sound like this, but this is just really well timed. I think a lot of people just kind of like put their arm in that barrel and just fish around for something good, and since it all is like pretty good, it's hard to shoot fish in a barrel, if you will. It's hard to find a bad one in a way, but the stuff that's like really, really excellent, there isn't a lot of people like going in and bothering to bring to the forefront the best of that kind of stuff. And like for most people, I think Dark Throne is all they fucking need, etc. I talked about this when I got it in a month or two ago. This is Gravestone. Really, really weird Dark Descent slash Dark Symphonies reissue EP called Symphony of Pain. I don't recall where these guys are from, but this is some super, super weird, like, what's that? Infectious grooves, bass playing kind of death metal sort of stuff. The vocals are super weird. I don't know that I love this, but there will probably come a day where I'll want something super off the wall, oddball, and I'll put this in and I'll just fall in love with it. It's definitely up my alley. Lately though, I haven't really been into really the weird stuff as much as other times. Next we've got Out of the Graves, Carnation. I don't know, this is kind of one of those bands that are like too big for the underground, but too underground for the big time kind of stuff. They sound great, super polished, they write epic, amazing, kind of folky, just metal songs. I don't really, that's a really hard to categorize band. Anyways, this album is Light of Day, Day of Darkness. In my limited experience with their discography, this is their best. At least it's my favorite, I could say that. Members of this band were notedly in the Woods, I believe also, isn't this Oliver from Emperor's band? He was just like a live member of Emperor. Anyways, this is just super, super epic. I kind of hesitate to use the word atmospheric. It is, but if I tell you that, you're going to think it's something like modern-y kind of stuff. This came out around turn of the century, 2001. Tell you what, it's on Prophecy Productions, which should give you an idea of that kind of stuff. But Short, that was his name. There you go. But this is really, really good stuff. I was really happy when I found this used in a bin maybe 5 or 6 years ago, because I had always meant to pick this up. Solid stuff. There's a lot of kind of clean vocals going on. There's a lot of variation, a lot of diversity, a lot of just cool, huge metal ideas going on. It's epic. It's kind of nature inspired. It's just kind of all over the place. It's not really brutal or anything. It's not blasphemous or nasty at all whatsoever, but it's really, really solid stuff. I think my love for it largely is because I absolutely love In the Woods, even some of their later era stuff, Strange in Stereo, especially Omnio, that kind of shit. Some of the best Norwegian metal to come out of there. So next we've got a band, Grief of Emerald. I don't know which one of these came first. I want to say it was this one. Sometimes I go back and forth. If I want to leave the sticker on, sometimes I want people to know I got a fucking deal on this thing. Christian Termination. This sounds what it looks like. Just brutal hyperspeed black metal. But it's got riffs. Yeah, hyperspeed, super fast stuff, really, really violent. I'm gonna go ahead and look it up because I'm feeling extra helpful today. I think France. Sorry, Sweden. So Grief of the Emerald. This one is Christian Termination 2002. I haven't listened to this in a really, really long time. And then this one is the debut Night Spawn. Apparently I'm missing the album in between these two, Malformed Seed. It looks like this one is their worst reviewed on Metal Archives. And like I'm saying that because I don't have any opinion to give you on this, but Christian Termination I remember being pretty good. And it looks like Metal Archives agrees with me. But yeah, I actually sold these to my local record store many years ago when I was looking to just kind of purge and make some extra cash. And then I wound up buying them again like for $3 a piece a couple of years later because they were still sitting in the used bin. And I just felt bad because my garbage was taking up space in their shop. Next we've got a really, really killer, interesting solo project from Sweden, Focus. This is Grift. So, in my opinion, this is Sweden's answer to Panopticon. Only a little less complex, a little less like ornate and like intricate. I think Panopticon is some really beautiful, embellished kind of stuff. But there is a real beautiful simplicity to what Grift is doing. And he also has a tendency to use some, like, I'm guessing traditional Swedish instruments, but I'm probably casting aspersions there a bit. It's real sorrowful, atmospheric kind of stuff. It's real, reminds me a lot of Afski. But yeah, it's super just despondent, and maybe some people would maybe categorize it as like suicidal, but I don't think it's like so negative. I don't think it's so, I don't know, I just so cheesy like a lot of that stuff is. This is very sincere, shoegazy kind of atmospheric stuff. I have I think all of his albums, really, really good stuff. Now we're moving on to something fucking awesome. This is some amazing Quebecois stuff. This is G-R-I-S. I'm not sure how you would pronounce that exactly. But this is, I think, their debut. I'm going to go ahead and look this up since I'm already doing this a lot. Actually, no. I think this is the second album. 2007 is when this one came out. Kind of a classic. I think a lot of people consider this if you're hip to this kind of thing. Yeah, atmospheric kind of stuff. It's super melancholic and despondent. Just so good. Their songs are so well written. I don't listen to this as often as I would wish I did. There's a booklet there. And I also just picked up this copy maybe a year or two ago on Discogs. But amazing stuff. Even more amazing than that is this double album from the same band, Grift. I recently learned how to speak fake French, and there's this thing of this fat flap in the back of your throat, and if you just turn R's into you're speaking French. That's all there is to it. This is a double disc album called A Lama and Flama Lama Costelle, the Flaming Constellation, since I know French. Even more beautiful and ornate and just stirring. It's just really hard to not get sucked into this stuff. There's a part, I was checking this out one time just like playing video games while I put this album on. There's this part where the violin marries with the guitars in the super repetitive kind of downtrodden dark kind of part. Oh, and I was just like, I am buying this. Yeah, so good. The first one came out on Sepulchral Productions. Actually, this one did too. Man, it seems like if you don't do a double CD and a digipack, you're fucked. These fucking 2 CD jewel cases that are like just as slim as your ordinary one, they never work right. Lastly, I've got kind of a classic here with Guillotine. Under the Guillotine. Man, that looks fucking good. I wanted to get that killer album cover looking just right. So this was a Necropolis Records release back in 97, I believe. Yeah. And at that time, there were a lot of bands kind of saying, hey, remember thrash? Let's play thrash. These guys were from Sweden, and they did nothing other than this fantastic record. Definitely reminds me of Creator in a lot of ways. It references tons of those killer, like German bands. Songs like Death Penalty, Crucifixion, Night Stalker, Tormentor, Guillotine, Leprosy, Grave Desecrator, Executioner. You know what you're getting. Violence, Total Mayhem. They even went, like, I love the little touches in the design here. They've got this, like, cheesy, you're listening to digital audio kind of stuff. And even on the back here, if you've ever seen this in an old CD, where it talks about lasers and the readout surface and cleaning your disc and fingerprints on your media and shit like that. So good. Whoever put that extra touch into this packaging, great job. And yeah, this is a super rarity. Probably goes for $100 on eBay. Who cares? It's all about the music. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.